What's up, YouTube? Thanks for joining me today. What I want to do today is I'm going to go through how I will convert or prep an adventure for a different campaign setting. So what I'm talking about, what I want to do is I'm going to take the Lost Mine of Phandelver, which is probably getting up there on one of the most played adventures in D&D history, just with the fact of the popularity of 5th edition, thanks to celebrities playing and things like Critical Role. So I want to take that adventure and I want to take it out of the Forgotten Realms and put it into Mystara, which is a campaign setting that I have been using since 1982-ish. Nothing wrong with the Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance or Greyhawk, any other settings, just I've always preferred Mystara. It's what I learned on, it's what I grew up with. And I've spent a lot of time and money and effort in getting all the information I can and background info on Mystara. So what do we have to do to put Phandelver into Mystara? Well, first I need to pick a location. So let me back up for a second. There's a couple ways you could do this. So I could easily just take the adventure, take Phandelver, the town, and look on my map, pick an empty area, and just plop it right there. Boom. Phandelver is now a town in Mystara. I don't like that. It kind of screws up continuity a little bit, and I want it to have the Mystara feel, and I don't want to have to start rewriting maps. So first thing I will do is I'll open up I'm going to open up a map. And I think I'm going to pick Karamikos. That's kind of the most logical adventuring point in Mystara. It's where so many modules have been placed. It has some of the largest unexplored areas, excuse me, of the known world. Unless you want to head towards the Savage Coast or go on one of the other continents. So we're definitely going to use Karamikos as the country, as the nation. So as I look on the map, there's lots of towns that, a lot of adventuring start in. Threshold obviously comes to mind. It's too big. I mean, we're talking about Phandelver, which is written as a old mining community that's now started to rebuild itself. So we're just talking about a few hundred inhabitants of the entire village. So there's Rugalov, which is a small village, but it's right on the water, it's right on the coast, right on the ocean. Big river going up through the middle between the village, and then there's a keep, so that doesn't really work for me. But we're getting close. So on my map, as you travel up the Rugalov River, Rugalov, I'm not sure, there's a small town, and it doesn't even have an icon on whether it's a town, a village, a city. There's Haven. I don't know a whole lot about Haven. I've researched it, and there's just not a whole lot of information about it. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use Haven as my location where, I'm going to place this adventure. So I've got my town. I've got the name of it. I'll go through and I will mark anywhere where it's notated Phandelver in the adventure book. I'll make sure I make a note that it's Haven, just so I don't screw up and accidentally say Phandelver when I'm supposed to say Haven. And I'm going to use the Phandelver map. I can't find any map of Haven anywhere online, so it's not like there's a canon map of Haven. So change a couple of the words, change a little bit on the map, but not much. And I'm good to go. So I've got my town map. I won't need to use if you've looked at the adventure, there's the big map of the, I guess it's the Sword Coast, where there's, Neverwinter, Waterdeep, whatever it is right there, going down along the coastline. Where in the adventure you're traveling down the main road, and then you turn onto the Tribor Trail. Well, I'm not using that, and in fact, the location of Haven, given the fact it's not too far from the river going north, I think what I'm going to do is Gundon Rockseeker is, say, in Specularum. which is the capital, a big bustling city. And that's where the PCs will meet Gundren. And what they'll do is they're going to initially transport the goods that he wants delivered to Haven. See, I almost did it. By water, by sea, and then up the river. And at the river's end is where they'll disembark the boat and then continue on, wagon and horse. So that gets them on land. It gets them on a trail, and I can easily put a trail that heads to Haven. There's not one on the map, but that's an easy fix. And I think that will set up the that sets my location. That allows me to change up the background and the how do you get there part of the adventure. So instead of all by land, we can do it by sea. And you can just kind of hand wave the sea travel and the river travel if you want to. The river travel gives you an opportunity to maybe set up some sort of ambush or something like that, something in the vein of Nightstar Terror. Or I don't need to. I think we'll just kind of I'll just play it by ear. I'll have a couple of encounters set up, and if the players aren't feeling it, if they just seem like they want to rush and get off of the water and get into the adventure, then I can do that too. I haven't even looked at the map, but you're probably looking at a couple days journey. You're going along the sea, then up the river, a couple days by boat. So that's easy. So I've got my trip figured out. I've got my location now set. I'm changing the name of the town. All of the encounter, and I don't want to give away too many spoilers. You have lots of side quests to gather information for the main plot line. And none of those are inhabited towns or cities. So, I could just use those straight out of the adventure, the names of them, because it's not going to affect the community or that area of Karamikos at all. I think the layout, and I'll put the map up here. I've got mountains, I've got forests, which is everything that I need. If you look on the map of the area around Phandelver, I need mountains, I need forests, and I have all of those with Haven. So again, I think that's why that is going to work out really, really well. Alright, so I've got my location, I've got my setup. What else needs converted? Well, on the player side of it, there's some issues with some of the races. If you look at canon, whether published or just accepted, because nothing's been published since the early to mid 90s, Tieflings don't exist in Mystara. Dragonborn don't exist in Mystara. Aarakocra don't exist in Mystara. They have their own races, and thanks to Mr. Welsh's 5th edition Mystara guide, we now have access and some stats for those races, which is great. So there's not a lot of you give up some, you gain some new ones, and some new ones that people have probably never played before, which is kind of exciting for a lot of players, I think. Half-elves. There are no half-elves in Mystara. Canon goes where if an elf and a human have a child, the child will either be human or elf and have those specific qualities of that race. Age, certain racial abilities. And that goes back to, I believe, the Silmarillion written by Tolkien. That's how half-elves were handled in Tolkien's world. I'm not going to bore you with the lore because I don't exactly know it all that well. But in the history of the elves, when a human and an elf would have a child, the gods would determine whether the child was human or elf. There wasn't half-elf. But I like half-elves. I think they're a really good race. I think they offer some really cool benefits. I think if you want to play a bard, I think the best race to be a bard is a half-elf. So in my Mystara, half-elves are a thing. And that's just how I like it. So that's covered in the classes. There's some start classes that add 5th edition and add opened up to from. And of course, any out of the edition handbook, any of the published materials. If either I or the players have those books, that we can easily access that information. And that's covered the players. Now, other things need to be addressed. They're going to be factions, because 5th edition loves factions, and I think that's a symptom of the Adventurers League. I think the Adventurers League is what made Wizards really put such a heavy focus on factions, because really they didn't really exist in previous editions. So I've got to work that out. Monsters. There are a few monsters that just don't exist in Mystara. And there's a spoiler coming up, so I'll give you a second. Alright, you still with me? Drow don't exist in Mystara. They just don't. They're shadow elves, but they're not the same. They're not, they're not the default bad guy like they are, or I guess now were, in the Forgotten Realms, like the Drow were. Shadow elves are just kind of neutral. They want to be left alone. They don't really understand what's going on in the world above them. They're not big fans of the surface elves, but that just doesn't make them the obvious bad guy. So there's no Drow in Mystara, so there's no Drow in the Lost Mines of Phandelver. So I need to come up with a new bad guy or group of bad guys that are trying to do what the Drow is doing in the Lost Mines of Phandelver. Again, factions, I don't think that's going to be too hard. There's lots of really good organizations in Karamikos. We've got the Veiled Society, the Iron Ring, there's the Order of the Griffin, there's the Church of Traladar, there's the Church of Karamikos, so I've got plenty to work with there. And like I said, I'm going to address that in the next video. So I think this is going to cover what I needed to cover on this portion of it. If you've placed Lost Mines of Phandelver or any other module that takes place in one campaign setting, and you've plucked it and placed it into your own campaign setting, tell me how you did it. Did you just pluck it and place it? Was it a copy and paste kind of thing, or did you do some work and make it your own? Let me know in the comments section. Please like and share this video, and subscribe to my channel. That's cool. And until next time, thanks for watching.